I'm glad you came to the Sleepytime stories. The sun's going down. It's time to go inside. Come on with me. Come on. Let's get cozy and read the very first story from the complete My Naughty Little Sister. The very first illustration is right next to the title. This is an illustration of My Naughty Little Sister's doll. And it doesn't really come up in the story, but it is a cute little doll. You might have a little doll or stuffed animal or pillow that you like to cuddle with as you fall asleep. The next and last illustration is the narrator, the little girl, holding her new baby sister. I'm glad that you could look at the pictures because now I want you to close your eyes. There's no more pictures except the ones that you can imagine inside your own head. Because it is time to go to sleep, I'm just going to put up a picture of the sun going down and the stars coming out. And now you know that I'm not going to change the picture, and you can just close your eyes and relax. The story begins with the narrator, the little girl, going to visit her godmother aunt in the country. And I want you to imagine a beautiful little town in the country with tall trees and green grassy hills and lots of different animals. I want you to take a deep breath and sink into your bed and get ready to imagine a wonderful story. The very first story by Dorothy Edwards, illustrated by Shirley Hughes. A very long time ago, when I was a little girl, I didn't have a naughty little sister at all. I was a child all on my own. I had a father and a mother, but I hadn't any other little brothers or sisters. I was quite alone. I was a very lucky little girl because I had a dear granny and a dear granddad and lots of kind aunts and uncles to make a fuss of me. They played games with me and gave me toys and took me for walks and bought me ice creams and told me stories. But I hadn't got a little sister. Well, now, one day when I was a child on my own, I went to stay with my kind godmother aunt in the country. My kind godmother aunt was very good to me. She took me out every day to see the farm animals and to pick flowers. And she read stories to me and let me cook little cakes and jam tarts in her oven. And I was very, very happy. I didn't want to go home one bit. Then one day my godmother aunt said, "Here is a letter from your father, and what do you think he says?" My aunt was smiling and smiling. "What do you think he says?" she asked. He says that you have a little baby sister waiting for you at home. I was excited. I said, I think I had better go home at once, don't you? And my godmother aunt said, I think you had indeed. And she took me home that very day. My aunt took me on a train and a bus and another bus, and then I was home. And do you know, before I'd even got indoors, I heard a waily noise coming from the house, and my godmother aunt said, That is your new sister. Wah, wah, my little sister was saying, wah, wah. I was surprised to think that such a very new child could make so much noise, and I ran straight indoors and straight upstairs and straight into my mother's bedroom. And there was my good, kind mother sitting up in bed, smiling and smiling. And there, in a cot that used to be my old cot, was my new cross little sister, crying and crying. My mother said, Shh, baby, here is your big sister come to see you. My mother lifted my naughty little baby sister out of the cot, and my little sister stopped crying at once. My mother said, Come and look. My little sister was wrapped up in a big woolly white shawl, and my mother undid the shawl, and there was my little sister. When my mother put her down on the bed, my little sister began to cry again. She was a little red baby, crying and crying. Wah, 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 like that. My little sister had tiny hands and tiny little feet. She went on crying and crying and curling up her toes and beating with her arms in a very cross way. My mother said, She likes being lifted up and cuddled. She is a very good baby when she is being cuddled and fussed. But when I put her down, she cries and cries. She is an artful pussy, my mother said. I was very sorry to see my little sister crying, and I was disappointed because I didn't want a crying little sister very much. But I went and looked at her. I looked at her little red face and her little screwed up eyes and her little crying mouth, and then I said, Don't cry, baby, don't cry, baby. And do you know, when I said, Don't cry, baby, my little sister stopped crying, really stopped crying at once for me, because I told her to. She opened her eyes and she looked and looked, and she didn't cry anymore. My mother said, Just fancy, she must know you are her own big sister. She has stopped crying. I was pleased to think that my little sister had stopped crying because she knew I was her big sister. And I put my finger on my sister's tiny hand, and my little sister caught hold of my finger tight with her little curly fingers. My mother said I could hold my little sister on my lap if I was careful. So I sat down on a chair, and my godmother aunt put my little sister onto my lap, and I held her very carefully. and my little sister didn't cry at all. She went to sleep like a good baby. And do you know, she was so small and so sweet, and she held my finger so tightly with her curly little fingers that I loved her and loved her, and although she often cried after that, I never minded it a bit because I knew how nice and cuddly she could be when she was good. I hope that you are drifting off to sleep and cozying down into your pillows and blankets. And I want you to have very sweet dreams and a wonderful sleep so that when you wake up, you are full of energy to have a wonderful day.